Okay, so for today, this is going to be the second exercise in the handout that I gave you. And this is the art department pics one, or the art department poster that we're going to be creating. When you download this zip file, all it is a folder that has all the pictures of the art department people in it. And those are the pictures that we're going to be using in our layout. Remember, one of the best things about the Mondrian layout is that it's all modular. So you can change sizes, you can move things around, as long as you stay within this gridded type structure. And this is especially helpful if you only have a couple of images, or if all of the images are the same, or if there's not just a good variety to choose from. Even if there is a variety. So this is why I'm giving you this particular structure. So the first thing I want to do, I want to show you how to set up the document. We're going to do it straight from scratch. And you're going to make this document. I'll go into normal view. You can see I'm missing the links to some of these photos, but that's okay. But do you see the grid structure in my document?
Yes.
You see all the, first of all, I've got horizontal lines going through. I've got columns set up. And everything is nice and orderly within this grid. Right now it's a little bit boring. All the pictures are just kind of at the top, and you know, there's not too much going on with the text itself. Later, once you've developed your grid structure, you can start playing around with it. You can get something like this. You can move things around. You can change the size of little things and add different stuff to it to complete your structure. This is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than just having a boring grid like this, because it's got more movement. It's got, you know, it's off balance a little bit. It moves your eye from one area down to the other one. You can get even more crazy and start getting variety of sizes. So this is more contrast in size, contrast in placement, but still I'm staying within my grid structure. You still see everything is, you know, based on a certain size. The height of this one is only twice as big as the other ones, right? So I'm staying within my grid, but I've got a lot more freedom to move things around, and I know it'll look good because I'm still using that same grid type structure. Man, once I get into it, it'll work out. All good? Okay, so this is what we're going to do for setting it up, and I actually walked through it before you came in just to make sure it'll work. All right, let's see. I won't save that one, but I will close this one out. Let's close this out just so it doesn't get in our way. Okay, so in InDesign, go away. We're going to make a new document. This document's going to be 11 by 17. That's a standard size. Do you remember which of these standard sizes on the screen are 11 by 17?
Is it the tabloid?
It's the tabloid size, exactly.
I just did it.
Okay, there you go. All right. 11 by 17, it's twice as big as a letter size piece of paper. And we do need it to have 5-inch margins all around, already set in there, and a columns of 4 with no gutter. So this will give us our vertical guides once we set it up. There's our 4 columns. Now we need to create some horizontal guides going through this one. When I set these up, I want my guides to be perfectly square inside of this. Now I know these are about 2.5 inches wide. The problem is when I start measuring these, watch what happens. I'm going to pull a new guide down at 2.5 inches right there. Does that look square?
Not really.
Not really. It's off by about 1/2 inch. Here's the reason why. My guides, my 0 point is right here at the edge of my paper. Instead of it being at the edge of the paper, I actually want to start measuring right here. So to move my ruler, you can click on the edge of the ruler, drag it to there. Now when I pull a guide of 2.5, let's see, there it is. Looks much better. So one kind of trick to remember is you got to change your position of your ruler as you start measuring these off. If you want, you can reposition the ruler each time. So in other words, I can move it again to right here, to my second line, and then drag another one right at 2.5. Too far. Come on, there we go. Or I can just keep counting up. So 2.5 plus 2.5 should be 5. Right there. Plus another 2.5 is 7.5. Plus another 2.5 is 10. Yeah, 10. Plus the half. There we go. Alright, and so I've got my grid structure just like that, very, very quickly. Notice that I didn't pull another one. This bottom portion is going to be a little bit taller than necessary. I've got more squares than I actually need. Okay, so we've got it set up, we've got our grid structure that we're going to work with. Next thing, let's start generating some content. We've been talking about using color schemes within the colors that you use. And so if you looked at this one, what colors am I using?
Let's see, the blue and the green, and they're
Uh-huh.
split complement.
Blue and green are...
No.
If they're right next to each other on the color wheel, what are they?
Oh, is it the one that starts with A?
Yep. Analogous.
Analogous.
They're analogous to each other. And you can see in the other ones I get a little bit of brown and stuff. The truth is that you can put any two colors together. You can make it work as long as you've got a good light and dark variety of them. In InDesign, they've actually got a little program, kind of a little mini program, it's called an extension, that helps you pick out colors. And this is one that I like to use. If you go under Window, down to Extensions, it's called Cooler.
Oh, okay.
And Cooler is a color picker. It's a great little color picker that helps you quickly and easily choose colors. If you click on the Create tab bar, this will give you your color wheel, and by default you can just move each thing around. It's kind of boring, it's easy to do it, but you can see it lets you pick up to 5 different color swatches that you can use. The best thing is you can set a rule for it to be. So there's analogous color schemes, monochromatic, there's your triads. All of these allow you to do this. So if I wanted an analogous color scheme, notice that they're all side by side. If I click and move one, they all move. And they all move proportional to each other. The one with the circle in it, this is your base color. So if I was to move it, they all move around. So if I know I want something to be in the blue family, I can set my base color to be blue. I can change the lightness and darkness, and you can see they all change appropriately with it. And so this is just kind of a great way of quickly creating colors, and if I know I want it to be analogous, hey, now I've got my analogous color scheme here. If I need it to be a triad, so they're equally spaced apart, and I can move them around and they automatically choose their triadic color scheme from there. All cool? Let's use a triad color scheme. I'll leave it up to you what colors you want to pick. The only thing that I request is that you use a dark blue. Since MC is dark blue colors, at least one of them should be a dark blue that you can work with. Let's see. That's kind of a good little dark blue right there, so I'll use this one. To save the colors, so I've got my swatches panel open right here. What I want to do is I want all of these 5 swatches to be saved into my swatches panel. At the very bottom middle, this button will allow you to add these swatches to your area. Once it's done, we're all good. One last thing to do. What is it about these colors that's different from these colors?
Okay, those were the ones that you just chose.
Uh-huh.
And right now, you're supposed to click on it for some reason.
You are? What, do you remember the reason?
So they'll stay there.
No. Right now they're in RGB mode.
Oh.
RGB is only for screens. If this was to be printed, I need to convert it to CMYK.
Yeah.
And you're right, if you double click it, change it to CMYK, it'll give you a color that's closer to that, and that'll do it for that one. Here's another quick tip. If you hold down Shift, you can select all of them, and if I hold down my Control key, I can edit all of them at the same time. So here's my swatch options, and all of them I can convert to CMYK all at once. So it's a little bit quicker to do that. So I've got all my values. Let's actually start putting them to good use. First thing I'll do is give myself a blue background, and I'm just going to use the rectangle. Nothing fancy about that. It just sets up my background as being whatever the dark blue it is. And it's a little bit purple, that's okay. The next thing I need to do is I need to create small squares inside of this area. And this is where we're going to put our pictures into it. So these need to be frames that we create. Got my frame tool. I'm going to make one of them. I could click and drag and just make one for each of these. Do you remember the keyboard shortcuts or the shortcuts using the selection tool that allows me to copy?
It's Command C.
Command C will copy and paste it, but do you remember specifically the selection tool shortcut? If let's say I selected all 4 of these, which is what I've done, what can I hold down to quickly copy? Option, bingo. Hold down the Option key, and when I drag, all 4 of them will be copied at the same time, since I've got all of them selected. And really I asked for 14 of them. I've got 16 here. That's plenty to work with. So all of those are nice and filled up. The next thing I asked you to do is to put a 6-point stroke around everything. And if you select all of them, all I'm doing is clicking and dragging. And I'll deselect this one. Since they're all selected, up here is my stroke width. We'll set it to 6. And we'll set the color to white. There it is. All good from there. So this will give me that white outline around everything that I have from this one. Next part is the fun part, loading up all of the images into here. Do you remember how to put multiple images all at once rather than having to do them one at a time? We did this for the all the different pictures in one of the last projects that we had.
Have we clicked in that circle?
No, not yet. Here's how it is. We'll go to File and Place. I've got none of them selected. And on my desktop is where the pictures are. I'm going to select all of the pictures. With them all selected, give it a second. Notice that it's going to follow my cursor. And I've got the number 12. Wherever I click, that's where it's going to place it into there. Alright, yeah, I've got a couple left over. That's okay, we'll use those as decorations. Now comes the little tedious part to work with. We want all of the pictures to look exactly the same. So right now they're all obviously very, very big and they're off to the side. So we will have to scale them, we will have to move them. But what I'm looking for is for them to all be about the same size. So you don't want one head specifically to be much larger. You know, it fits in there, but that one's standing out because it's way too big. You don't want one of them to be way too small than the other ones. That'll stand out too much as well. Instead, we want them all to be a nice consistent size that we're working from. So when I choose it, what's the quickest way of scaling down a picture? Do you remember what button to press?
Scale it down.
Remember what these two?
Auto fit.
There you go. Well, yeah, it's above auto fit. One of these two will do it. If I choose that one, yeah, that one tends to be the best option for this one. So I'm going to hit all of them. Automatically scale it down. Let's see how small that they can get just to fit in there. If I do click this other one, it'll look like this, way too small. I want this one to actually fit the width of all of these. Uh-oh. Hit something wrong. There we go. And that one. Okay, all good. Next thing, they're all pretty much about the right size. You can actually get them a little bit larger. Notice how hers was taken on a different day, so the camera was much closer. This is as large as hers can get. So I need all of them to be, you know, about as big as the biggest one that's there. So I'm going to click on the little circle. I'm not even going to use my mouse. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge it down. This way I don't accidentally move it around or scale it too much. So the arrow keys are another great little shortcut to use. So that works. Let's do the same thing for Mr. Gregory. Click on the circle. Just going to nudge it down. Now would you say this one's smaller, larger, or about the same size than this one?
It's a little bit smaller.
A little bit smaller.
Yes, it is.
Exactly. So I'm going to hold down my shift key
Mhm.
and scale it up. There we go. Of course, if I scale it, I need to reposition it.
Mhm.
That's looking pretty good right there.
Mhm.
Another thing to look for, and this is just comes from laying out newspapers and things, you want their eye lines to be very similar.
Okay.
So if here, I'll even drag a ruler. Try to keep it, you know, along that line. I could move hers up a little bit.
Mhm.
It starts to cut off her head just a little bit, but around the same point. So I wouldn't want Mr. Gregory's to be way up here
Mhm.
or dead center in the picture. I want it to be just up a little bit. So the same thing for Miss Busby. Could bring it down, and then hold down my shift, scale it up. A little bit bigger. I'm using my arrow keys to move it into place. Let's move Mr. Gregory right down. There we go. Same way for my picture. Larger. It's actually maybe you think that's a little too large compared to the others?
Maybe just a smidgen. I think it's just your nice big smile.
Could be. I've got more of a beard than everybody else in my row. Okay. So they're all basically along the same row along this one as well. Let's go into preview mode. You can see what that looks like. All cool? So I've got that one. I won't bother making you watch me do the rest of those, but that's just going to give you some practice scaling things down, moving things into place. The main thing is, to move it, use your arrow keys.
Okay.
Rather than trying to click and drag things around,
Mhm.
just click on the little circle and then use your arrow keys to nudge things into place. Then once you're ready to scale it, hold down your shift key, scale it,
Mhm.
place it in place from there. Alright, so I've got that one. For these bottom little, oops, what did I do? Okay. For these bottom little ones, got the wrong tool, that's what it is. I'm going to fill these in with just my other color schemes that I chose. So like I like this, make sure I got fill selected. Like that's a good color. Green is a good color to use, maybe even the darker green that I had. I could go light, and maybe just another one of those. So those are just the extra fill in that I have. Last thing we're going to do is add the word Mississippi College and Art Department to the bottom. Notice that I put each one of them in their own separate little text box.
Okay.
This makes it a lot easier, so if I wanted to move the words around, I can do that. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to copy and paste it
Mhm.
down here. And of course, I can change the color that I'm working with. So if I wanted it to be that particular shade of green, or maybe even that right there.
Mhm.
Because I'm staying within a color scheme, it works out really, really well. Now the fun begins. You can move things around, you can scale things, and start playing around with your layout. So I know I've got all the pictures exactly the same. Say if I'm selected, come on, there we go. These four,
Mhm.
I can move them down. Oh, come on. Sometimes I don't know if it's selected or not. But I'm still using my grid to keep everything exactly the same. If I chose maybe these two, let's move those down. Now I've created an opening. I could put Mississippi College Department of Art right there.
Mhm.
Of course, I do need to scale that in so that it fits.
Cool.
I've opened it up, but this type of layout would completely work out really, really well for what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
Let's see. If you wanted to scale things down and make little smaller elements within there, you can do that. If you wanted to scale up somebody's picture, get crazy with it. The main thing is, if I go back into here, I've got my grid. If I took everything else off of here, you can see exactly how my grid is set up, minus that particular one. Kind of like making a quilt.
Mhm.
You can put whatever you want in there as long as you're using the same pattern within the quilt that you have.
Mhm.
Everything else pulls from here. Remember that bottom one's going to be off by a little bit, but let you play around on how you want to fill that in.
So is all the dark blue background, that was a dark blue crayon,
Uh-huh.
not crayon, listen to me. Oh, wait a minute, no, oh, that was one of the swatches, yeah.
It was one of the swatches, yeah, that we picked from Cooler. So I didn't pull it from any of the pictures. I just came up with it.
And you had to put that color in every one of those little blocks.
I did. Well, I didn't have to for every one of the blocks. I just
Okay.
put the pictures in there, and it was only those last little 4 blocks that I put the
I didn't know
color
if
in.
it was like a solid background and I missed it or something.
No, yeah, the only solid background was this blue
Just the white.
background, yeah, that we have. Okay, that's it for this particular exercise. It's meant to be real simple. It's just to help you play around with scaling, placing, and then making a design within that gridded structure.
Okay.
All right.